Hi, and welcome to this episode of Collaborwocky. Join our vibrant community and watch our latest episodes at modusinstitute.com/Collaborwocky.
Hey everybody, welcome to Modus Institute's Collaborwocky. I'm Dave Pryor. I'm here with Tonianne DeMaria, Jim Benson, Mark Kilby, and our special guest, Diana Larsen. And we're going to spend the next block of time talking about a bunch of things. We're going to talk about some of Diana's books. We'll definitely touch on Lead Without Blame, but I think we probably want to kick it off with the news that there's a brand new edition of one of the I always say there's two books everybody has on their bookshelf, and one of them is Agile Retrospectives, and now they have to go buy a new version. So Diana, thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to this. I know that the unexpected is more than likely going to happen.
Hopefully. I would like to ask a question just kind of to kick it off about the new book. So what's new in the new book?
What's new in the new book? Well, if you even look at it this way, Tonianne, you have the old one, right? Hold it up this way. No, hold it up this way. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
It's like there's twice as much in here. It also on Amazon costs twice as much. So there you go. But there's everything that we have learned since the first book came out, all in one place, and addressing all the pain points that we heard along the way. But I do retrospectives, and my team never follows through on the action items. We don't learn anything. How do I get my organization to help me make some of these things happen, and that the team's identified as needs in the retrospective, or all those kinds of questions that have come up. Plus, that book was published in 2006. So we wrote it from 2004 to 2006. Few things have changed in our environment since then. So a couple of things. Yeah. And so that also has added in. So we have whole chapters on remote retrospectives and how you can do those more effectively and who out there is doing that and why are they. This time around, we included stories from other people who were, the only people we had when we wrote the first book were kind of us and the few people who would show up at a retrospective gathering each year. Mark. But now we put out a call and we said, who has some interesting stories to tell us about what's worked or where you've had struggled or whatever about retrospectives. And so there are a lot of those stories from the field in there. We've got some of the old familiar activities that people really know and love because we know there'll be new folks buying the book, but we also jettisoned some of the ones that were in the first book to add in ones that we think are newer and really valuable. So just a lot. I mean, it's one of those things where we thought, we'll write a second edition. It'll take us about 9 months. And 4 years later, and having examined every single word in the book for does it deserve to stay or not,
right.
This is what we've got. Yeah.
But Dana, you not only added pages and ideas and exercises, I think you added an author.
And we added an author. Yes, we added an author. Thank you. Yeah, David Horowitz joined Esther and I. And he's, he has deep experience with remote retrospectives and as the CEO of Retrium. Okay. And he was very gracious and very clear. This isn't a book about Retrium. Mm-hmm. This is a book about all the things that people need to understand about retrospectives. And so he was a great partner. We really enjoyed it.
Cool.
And we did it during the time when a lot of us were struggling with a lot of different things, not only a pandemic, but things in our lives were changing. And I'm just really proud of us as a group that we were able to pull this off and get it together. Cool. It was a challenge, and it was felt like a worthy challenge all the time. So I don't regret a minute of it.
Okay. Can I ask a tactical question, a selfish tactical question? So other than when I've used Adam Weisbart's Recess Kit, I don't think I've ever been in a retro that actually went through all 5 stages. How important is that?
Well, it's fairly common. And we reiterate the importance of the 5 stages.
Okay.
It was particularly important for the first edition because we were writing for people. If you think back to 2004, 2006, even though there were people who were by that time identified as Scrum Masters, there was very little understanding of the need for, if you're going to have teams, you're going to have effective meetings, which means you're going to have some facilitation skills involved. Okay. And so we emphasized that a lot in the first book. And we've returned to that too, but we also know now that, people have more skills and more understanding. And so if you really look at it from a facilitator's point of view, the need for setting the stage, for instance, which is one of the first things that gets 86, is critical because people have a lot on their minds. There's a lot going on in everybody's life, in every team's life.
Yeah.
And getting them to come together and focus on one thing and having some techniques for doing that is really important if you want to have a good outcome.
Okay.
Right. So setting the stage is still important. Maybe more important now, not so much because it's a facilitation wrapper sort of thing, but because of how our lives are, how busy and multitasking and all the things going on our lives are. Even when we're working remote and may not have office mates distracting us, now we've got other kinds of things distracting us.
Slack.
Right? Yeah. And so how do we get back into that? Right.
Okay.
So set the stage is important. Making sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what we're talking about. So gathering data is important. That one often gets ditched as well. But getting it so that we are all in agreement that we are all talking about the same thing is an important piece, and people will often leave that out. Depending on the group, you may generate insights. You may get analysis. Developers love analyzing things. And so you'll get a lot of analysis. And that is why I think that the next most common way of ordering a retrospective just jumps right into analysis. What did we like? What didn't we like? What did we learn? Yeah. What do we want to do differently? That's analysis. That's all analysis. That's all generate insights work, right? And so it's not that we shouldn't do that. It's that there's a place for it. And if you do that without having everybody's head in the room and an agreement about what you're talking about,
right,
you're going to get some random analysis going on there. And then in other groups, they want to skip over all those first 3 things and just get right to deciding what to do without having any agreement or anybody's head in the room, or we're just going to get opinions from folks about what they already figured out. So, and then close the retrospective is just a nice way of moving from one thing to the next thing. And so those 5 steps are important, and we understand why people skip them, but you skip them at your peril. I mean, your team cannot do as well learning and analyzing, making decisions if you don't have all those pieces. And it really does reflect what we do as humans. So it takes what we naturally do as humans and expands it to be happening for the team. Getting our attention pulled to something.
Yeah.
Oh, noticing some things about it. Oh, what does that mean to me? Oh, what do I want to do about that? And I mean, we do that in a split second in our own brains.
Right.
But when you take it to a group, it has to be a little more deliberate and a little slower. Yeah.
So do you call out each stage? Like, now let's move into this stage? Like,
when I'm doing a retrospective, I rarely call out the stages, but I will have in mind for myself where am I now? Where does the team need to go next, and so on. So yeah, even when it's a very, very short, very small retrospective, I still manage to go through all the stages.
Okay.
It's possible. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
And I was going to add, probably one of the most valuable lessons I got was from that last stage. And that was from the first book, and actually taking course from you and Esther and seeing you at the retrospective gathering. But that idea of retrospecting the retro, it's like, how did this work for you? And that doesn't necessarily have to happen in the gathering. It can happen afterwards. And I've done it often with remote teams as well.
That reflection, that feedback to the team on the team's behavior, immediate like that, is really hugely valuable.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's where Slack can come in handy if everyone has rushed out of that meeting. You just put a quick message out there, like, how did that work for you? Then you get lots of feedback.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can keep going. I don't want to hog all the question time, though.
I'm a little daunted because Tony and I have started down the path of doing the second edition of Personal Kanban. Because you did do even worse than us in the gap between writing it, the first edition and the second edition.
Yeah. Right.
But not by much.
Yeah.
And we have been telling ourselves that we can do this fairly quickly.
Diana,
good luck with that.
Wait! It was faster and shorter. Faster and shorter.
Diana, not with the 4 years, 4 months.
4 months, yes.
4 months, yes.
I was able to read that bubble over Jim's head.
Yeah, it appeared immediately and largely.
I know. Yeah, I know that.
Right. Yeah, and we left a long time in between. I mean, if you think, that book was published in 2006. We did not embark on the second one until well into 2021.
Yep.
So we had a 15, 16-year gap there. And so there was a lot to update. Yep. There really was a lot to update.
Yeah, we're at 14 now.
Yeah, so you better get on it.
Well, but nothing's changed for us.
Yeah,
work is exactly the same, right?
Well, how did the pandemic affect it? Did it?
Well, yes and no. I mean, there were. How did it affect it? I really loved writing the first book and my second book, the Liftoff book with Ainsley, because we only wrote when we were together.
Okay.
We would get together for like a week at a time. We'd go to my son's beach house or whatever, and we pair wrote the whole book. So this time around, we were in 3 different places with 3 different schedules and we really weren't able to do that. We did a lot of peer reviewing of what each other had written. We tried to optimize the time we spent by, in terms of how we scheduled it and so on. But it really was quite different for me anyway. The Lead Without Blame book with Tricia, we also pair wrote, but it was a lot harder to find those big blocks of time because we couldn't do like a whole week. So we still had that when you write together for a whole week, you don't spend as much time on catching up from what you just did before the last time, right? Mm-hmm. And so this time, on trying to do that online, we had a lot more. We'd spend 2 hours, 4 hours writing, and then 2 weeks later find another 2 or 4 hours. But then you have more of that. Now, what was it we were working on? And you use all kinds of techniques to try to put a marker on where did we stop and why did we stop there and what did we think we were going to do next and that kind of thing. But still, it takes more time.
Okay.
It just takes more time. Yeah.
So I'm curious, working
for
that
me,
way.
The way I like to work. Yeah.
How long did it take you and Tricia to write the Lead Without Blame book?
We started a little before. We started at the end of 2020, and
That's what I thought.
and so, but then we published we were done in early 2023, and then the publication time for the book to actually come out took a little bit longer. But so yeah.
Okay.
And we were starting from scratch. We weren't rewriting. We were starting
Yeah.
from scratch, and that made a difference too. So you can't really
Yeah.
compare the two experiences.
Yeah, that's true. Working on a second book remotely pairing versus the first one with Johanna,
Yeah.
where we worked in anywhere from half-hour to hour segments, but we try to keep as close to a Monday through Friday schedule. But it still took us about a year to do the writing part of it. Yeah, there's the assembly part that nobody talks about, and it is so much fun.
Yeah.
I want to hear about that part because I'm in the middle. I'm about to enter that part. What happened?
No, that's part of the initiation, right?
Yes,
That's right.
right. That's our hazing ritual.
That is.
Awesome.
Oh my! Nobody tells you about that in advance.
Well, what about the content? Did COVID affect the way that you treat retrospectives? I mean, did you have to add a whole section because of how much the remote aspect of it, how much deeper that is for everybody?
Well, there's a whole chapter on just remote and on the differences between in-person, hybrid, which just don't do it, and remote retrospectives, and why those, how each of those kind of contexts shifts how you can do things, and then they're all doable, but except hybrid, which is terrible. But I mean, both remote retrospectives and in-person retrospectives are entirely doable. You just have to give some different ways of thinking about what you want your outcomes to be and how often. And I mean, I don't know if we'll get to it later, but I put micro-retros as a possible discussion
I
thing,
voted
and
for
that's and that's and I'll just say real quickly, I have a lot of friends who colleagues who do mob ensemble programming, right? And a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them work in Pomodoros. And some of those folks are doing a retrospective at the end of every Pomodoro.
Wow.
So that looks radically different and works radically different remotely than it would if we were all sitting together.
Yep.
And so it's just things like that you just sort of really have to double down on considering the context when you're thinking about that.
Cool. Diana, how can people get in touch with you? How can they find their books? We should plug all that.
Oh, well, how people can get in touch with me is, I'm Diana at DianaLarsen.com. Actually, Onward at DianaLarsen.com is a better way to get in touch with me because I have an accountability partner who makes sure that I follow through on things. Onward. And she will give me those little gentle nudges. So Onward at DianaLarsen.com. You can, if you've got a question or a comment or something like that, there is a contact us form at DianaLarsen.com down at the bottom of the page. We always respond to things that don't come from Russian bots that show up there and that come from real humans. And I've got a newsletter people can subscribe to also from the website. I'm on Mastodon. I'm no longer on many of the other social medias, but I'm on Twitter and I'm on LinkedIn and Mastodon. and on both, I'm Diana. Well, on Mastodon, I'm a Diana of Portland, where people have found me for decades in other ways. And then on LinkedIn, it's just my name. I'm Diana Larsen /Agile SWD or something like that. I can never remember. But love hearing from folks. Love being invited to give internal and public keynotes. The thing that really came to me that I know I love to do, and I would love to be able to do more of, is sitting in circle with leaders, starting out with kind of an ask me anything, so that people can get things off their minds, and then moving into a dialogue circle. where we take one of those themes and then work on it, and so that they can walk away with the actions that they want to do. It's a really powerful thing. It's my favorite thing to do. Also a little open space-ish, little, but
Yep.
And oftentimes very often I've been invited to do a keynote and internally, and then people will have me stay and we'll do 2 or 3 of those leader circles for folks at different levels, or that have similar concerns or that kind of thing.
Well, but I'll add as somebody who sat in one of those circles with you, and if you're listening now and have not done that, you're missing out, because that's where Diana works her magic.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Collaborwocky, where curiosity meets community. Remember, the journey doesn't end here. Whether you're sipping coffee, commuting, or even Gemba walking, lean into the agile rhythm of life, and may your personal Kanban boards be forever whip limited. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep those headphones snug. This is the Collaborwocky team signing off. Join us for the next episode on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or at modusinstitute.com/Collaborwocky.